All right, let's dive right in. We're going deep into cybersecurity today, exploring real-world scenarios, the kind that penetration testers actually face, all thanks to this CompTIA exam we've got here. It's really fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
It is.
It is. This exam, it's not just multiple choice. It really makes you think about the why. Behind the answers gives us a glimpse into the mindset of attackers, A&D defenders.
Absolutely, and that's what makes this Dup Def so exciting, you know? We're not just memorizing facts, but learning how to think strategically about cybersecurity. So whether you're a tech expert or just curious about this digital battlefield, this is for you. We'll break down the essentials, starting with the foundation. What exactly is penetration testing?
Let's go penetration testing.
A controlled attack simulation. Ethical hackers.
You know, the good guys. They're essentially trying to break into a system to find the weak points before the bad guys do.
So it's like giving the system a thorough security checkup, uncovering any hidden vulnerabilities. Speaking of uncovering things, question 1 throws us right into a scenario. What command allows a file owner to execute a shell script? It might look like gibberish, but the answer, shimmedu plus xscript.esh, is crucial for understanding how file permissions work.
Right. It gives the owner of a file the execute permission, allows them to run that script.
Yeah.
But this concept, it goes beyond just penetration testing. This happens every time you use your computer.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah.
So this command, it's part of the system that determines which files you can open or edit or run on your own computer.
Yeah, it's all about controlling access, preventing unauthorized changes.
Precisely. And what if someone does gain unauthorized access? What's their next move?
Well, often they cover their tracks.
Yeah.
Question 2 takes us right to that point, asking about the command history-c.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What's happening here?
That command, it clears the bash history, which is basically a log of all the commands the user has entered.
Yeah.
So in this case, the penetration tester is trying to erase evidence of their actions, making it harder for anyone to trace their steps.
Sneaky. It makes me think of like a digital detective,
Yeah.
you know, trying to solve a crime.
Exactly. And that's where log analysis comes in. Analyzing system logs is crucial in cybersecurity. They're like clues in the digital world. Security professionals use them to spot unusual activity, identify compromised accounts, and hopefully trace back the attacker's actions.
It really is a constant back and forth between attackers trying to stay hidden and defenders trying to find those digital footprints.
Now let's talk about an attack. That's all too real for everyone. Spear phishing. Question 22 asks, what technique has the highest chance of getting into a financial system? And the answer is spear phishing. It's a very targeted attack. Instead of casting a wide net, attackers tailor emails to trick specific individuals into giving up sensitive info or clicking on malicious links. What makes it so effective is that it often exploits our trust in seemingly legitimate sources.
That's what makes it so scary, you know? It's not just random spam. It can look like an email from your bank, a colleague, even a government agency.
Absolutely. And it often creates this sense of urgency.
Yeah.
You know, pushing people to act quickly without thinking things through. It's a good reminder to be cautious with any suspicious emails, even if it looks convincing.
It's a good reminder for me to double check, you know, those sender addresses. Think twice before clicking anything. That seems even slightly off.
Right.
Now let's move from our inboxes to our homes. Let's talk about the Internet of Things. Question 13 points out a vulnerability that's surprisingly common in all those internet-connected devices. Default passwords.
Yeah.
It's kind of mind-blowing that this is the most common vulnerability out there.
It is surprising. A lot of these devices,
Yeah.
from security cameras to smart speakers, they come with easy-to-guess passwords
Yeah.
right out of the box.
Yeah.
It's like leaving the front door to your digital life wide open.
Oh, that's a sobering thought. It makes you realize how important it is to change those defaults and to take those extra security steps.
Yeah.
Okay, let's dive into the tools of the trade now. Those used by both attackers and defenders. One that pops up repeatedly in this exam is Nmap.
It's like a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
For network exploration.
Okay.
Nmap is a network scanning tool used to discover hosts on a network, identify open ports and services running on those hosts, and even figure out their operating systems.
So it's kind of like a digital detective's toolkit,
Yeah.
mapping out the network landscape.
That's a great way to put it. Question 41 asks, how a tester could use Nmap to scan a network stealthily without setting off any alarms.
Okay.
It's about using Nmap strategically.
So it's not just about pointing and scanning, it's about doing it strategically, discreetly. I'm starting to see why it's such a powerful tool.
Nmap is incredibly versatile, but it also requires a certain level of expertise to use effectively. It can be used for good or bad, which makes it even more fascinating to learn about.
That makes sense. Knowing how this tool works, even at a basic level, helps us understand both how attackers could use it and how defenders can protect against those attacks. Speaking of defenders, let's switch perspectives for a moment. After a penetration test, it's all about fixing those vulnerabilities. That's where reporting comes in.
Right. A good penetration testing report. It doesn't just list vulnerabilities. It provides actionable insights for the developers who have to fix them.
And that's where question 10 comes in, right? It asks, what's most important in a report for developers? And the answer is code context for vulnerabilities. But what does that actually mean?
Think of it like this. Giving a mechanic a detailed blueprint of a car engine, highlighting exactly where the problem is.
Oh.
Code context. It gives developers the precise location of the vulnerability within the code, making it much easier for them to understand the issue and fix it.
So it's not just saying, hey, you've got a leaky pipe somewhere.
Yeah.
It's saying, the leak is in this specific section of pipe, here's the material it's made of, and here's how to access it.
Perfect analogy. Clear, actionable reporting is key to improving security. Without it, developers are left guessing, trying to fix a problem without knowing the root cause.
And that brings us to an important point. That goes beyond just the technical aspects of cybersecurity. Ethics. Question 31 asks what a tester should do if they discover active cybercriminals during a test. And the correct answer is not to engage them directly, but to immediately notify the client.
Right. A penetration tester's job is to find weaknesses, not to take the law into their own hands or try to become a vigilante hacker.
Makes sense. It's about responsible disclosure.
Yes.
Finding those vulnerabilities and reporting them through the proper channels.
Exactly. It's about using your knowledge responsibly, ethically, even when you're faced with a tempting opportunity to take action.
It's a powerful reminder that cybersecurity involves more than just technical skills. It requires judgment, a strong moral compass.
Cybersecurity. It's a complex landscape
where
the lines between right and wrong can get blurry. It's crucial to remember the ultimate goal, make the digital world a safer place for everyone.
Welcome back to our cybersecurity deep dive. We're continuing to explore these real-world scenarios from our CompTIA exam source material, and I'm really starting to grasp just how complex this field is.
It is complex, and it's constantly changing. Attackers are always coming up with new techniques, and defenders need to stay one step ahead.
Yeah, it's like a never-ending chess match.
Exactly.
It makes me think about how important, continuous learning is in this field. You can't just learn the basics and call it a day. You have to keep adapting and evolving your knowledge. Speaking of learning, question 5 brings up something called the OWASP Top 10.
The OWASP Top 10.
Yes,
A greatest hits list of web application security risks.
Ooh,
it's a globally recognized list of the most critical vulnerabilities that web developers, security professionals, really anyone who uses the web should be aware of.
So it's not just a technical document for experts. It's something that can help all of us understand the common ways that web applications can be attacked.
Absolutely. It's a valuable resource for anyone who wants to improve their web security awareness.
Okay.
It reminds us that even the most popular websites and applications can have vulnerabilities that attackers can exploit.
That's a good point. Makes me think about all those times I've entered my credit card information online. All right, let's delve deeper into one of these vulnerabilities. Question 6 talks about directory traversal, which sounds kind of intimidating.
It can be, because it allows attackers to access files and directories that are outside of the intended web route. Imagine a website that allows users to upload files.
Like uploading a photo to a social media profile.
Exactly. Now, with a directory traversal vulnerability, an attacker could manipulate the file path during the upload. Instead of just uploading their photo, they could potentially access sensitive system files, configuration files, even data from other users.
So it's like breaking out of the designated area and going snooping around places you're not supposed to be.
That's a great way to think about it. Directory traversal highlights the importance of securing file uploads and validating user input. Developers need to make sure that attackers can't manipulate those file paths to gain unauthorized access.
It's a good reminder that even seemingly simple actions like uploading a file can have serious security implications if the website isn't properly protected. Now, switching gears to a tool Used by both attackers and defenders. Question 37 brings up Wireshark.
Ah, Wireshark.
It's mentioned as the tool a penetration tester would use to open and read a .pcap file. So what are Wireshark and .pcap files?
Wireshark is like a powerful microscope for network traffic. It's a network protocol analyzer. It lets you capture network traffic in real time and then analyze it in detail.
So it's not just showing you that data is being sent and received, it's letting you see the actual content.
Exactly. Think of it like being able to listen in on the conversations happening between different devices on a network. A .pcap file, it's like a recording of those conversations.
I see. So a penetration tester would use Wireshark to open and analyze that recording, looking for clues about what happened on the network.
Precisely. They might be looking for signs of an attack, trying to understand how an attacker moved through the network, or identifying vulnerabilities that could be exploited.
It sounds incredibly powerful, like having access to a secret surveillance system for the digital world.
It is powerful, and it's used by both attackers and defenders. While attackers might use it for malicious purposes, like sniffing out sensitive information, defenders use it to troubleshoot network issues, analyze suspicious activity, and find ways to improve security.
Another example of how knowledge can be used for good or for bad, depending on the intentions of the person wielding it. Now, let's talk about a type of attack that often makes headlines: DDoS attacks. Question 38 asks, how you would know if a denial of service attack is effective.
DDoS stands for Distributed Denial of Service. It's like a digital swarm of attackers, flooding a target server with traffic, so much traffic that it crashes, preventing legitimate users from accessing it.
So imagine a popular website suddenly becoming unavailable. Could that be a sign of a DDoS attack?
It could be. The question specifically mentions that. A DDoS attack is effective when legitimate traffic can't reach the server.
It's like a mob of people.
Yeah.
Blocking the entrance to a store, preventing paying customers from getting in.
That's a great analogy. These attacks can be incredibly disruptive. They can cripple businesses, disrupt online services, and cause real chaos in the digital world.
DDoS attacks are a serious threat that organizations need to be prepared for. It's like having a plan in place in case a flash mob suddenly descends upon your business. Now, let's get a bit more specialized here.
Okay.
Let's talk about SCADA systems. Question 40 highlights the unique safety risk associated with penetration testing in these environments. What makes SCADA systems different, and why is penetration testing in these environments so risky?
SCADA systems, they control critical infrastructure, like power grids, water treatment plants, transportation systems. What makes them different is their direct connection to the physical world.
So it's not just about data being compromised, it's about real-world consequences that could impact people's lives.
Exactly. An attack on a SCADA system could disrupt essential services, or even cause physical damage. That's why penetration testing in these environments carries an added safety risk. The question specifically states this risk is because the devices may cause physical world effects.
That's a lot of responsibility for a penetration tester. You know, it's not just about finding vulnerabilities, but understanding the potential consequences of exploiting those vulnerabilities.
Absolutely. Penetration testers working with SCADA systems need to be extra careful, work closely with the client, understand the systems in depth, and take every precaution to prevent any unintended consequences.
It's a delicate balance between finding vulnerabilities and ensuring safety. Now, let's talk about something that's relevant to all of us: passwords. Question 58 asks, what would make rainbow table attacks difficult? Can you explain what rainbow tables are and how they're used?
Rainbow tables are pre-computed tables that store password hashes, and their corresponding plain text passwords is like a giant dictionary, password combinations.
Okay, yeah.
So instead of trying to crack a password one by one, an attacker could use a rainbow table to quickly look up the plain text password based on its hash.
Exactly. It's like having a cheat sheet for password cracking. That sounds scary. But the question suggests that stronger algorithmic requirements can make these attacks more difficult. How does that work?
Hashing algorithms are used to convert passwords into a seemingly random string of characters. It hides the actual password from attackers. Stronger algorithms make it much more computationally expensive and time-consuming to crack those hashes, even with rainbow tables.
So it's like adding extra layers of security to those passwords, making it much harder for attackers to break through.
Precisely. The stronger the hashing algorithm, the more difficult it is for attackers to crack passwords, even with pre-computed tables, like Rainbow Table.
That's reassuring. It makes me feel a little bit better about using strong, unique passwords for all my online accounts.
You should.
Now let's talk about what happens after an attack has taken place. Question 76 brings up incident response.
Incident response is what an organization does when a security breach has occurred.
Okay.
It's about containing the damage, recovering from the breach, and figuring out how to prevent similar incidents from happening again.
So it's like the cleanup crew
Yeah,
and the damage control team all rolled into one.
that's a great way to put it. The question asks, what would warrant revalidation of a previous security assessment? And the answer is after a breach.
That makes sense. If a system has been breached, you need to reassess its security.
Exactly. A breach can expose vulnerabilities that were previously unknown or underestimated. It's a wake-up call that the current security measures aren't enough, and a thorough reevaluation is needed.
It's a reminder that security is an ongoing process, not a one-time fix. You need to constantly adapt and improve your defenses based on new threats and vulnerabilities.
Absolutely. Incident response is a crucial part of that ongoing process. It's about learning from mistakes and making your systems more resilient to future attacks.
Okay, let's explore another tool, SQL Map. Question 59 highlights its role in web application testing, specifically for identifying a vulnerability in a URL. What is SQL Map and what kind of vulnerability are we talking about?
SQL Map is an open-source penetration testing tool that focuses on a specific type of web application vulnerability called SQL injection.
SQL injection. That sounds familiar. It has something to do with databases, right?
It does. Many websites and applications use databases to store information. SQL injection allows attackers to manipulate the database queries that those applications use to interact with the database.
So it's like sneaking in malicious code through the back door of a website.
That's a great analogy. With SQL injection, attackers can potentially bypass security measures, access sensitive data, or even take control of the entire database.
That sounds incredibly dangerous. It reminds us that even simple things, like web forms and search boxes, can be exploited if they're not properly protected. So how does SQL Map help in this situation?
SQL Map automates the process of detecting and exploiting SQL injection vulnerabilities. It can scan a website or application, test for these vulnerabilities, and even help attackers exploit them.
So it's a powerful tool for both attackers and defenders.
Absolutely. Attackers can use it to find and exploit weaknesses, while defenders can use it to identify vulnerabilities before the attackers do, allowing them to fix those vulnerabilities and improve their security.
It's another example of how knowledge and tools can be used for both good and bad purposes. Now let's shift our focus back to network protocols. Question 88 asks, what could be used for a denial of service attack if ICMP is disabled on a network segment?
ICMP stands for Internet Control Message Protocol. It's used for network diagnostics, like ping. Disabling ICMP can make it harder to detect and troubleshoot network issues, but it doesn't completely prevent denial of service attacks.
So even if ICMP is disabled, attackers can still launch DDoS attacks.
Exactly. The answer to the question mentions a technique called Fraggle.
Okay, what's Fraggle?
Fraggle is a type of DDoS attack that uses UDP, or user datagram protocols, like a variation on the classic ping flood attack. But instead of using ICMP echo requests, it uses UDP datagrams to overwhelm the target server.
So it's like attackers finding a different route to reach the same destination, bypassing the roadblocks that defenders have put in place.
That's a great way to think about it. Attackers are resourceful, and they're always looking for new ways to bypass security measures. That's why it's so important for defenders to understand the different protocols and attack techniques out there.
It's a reminder that cybersecurity is a constant cat-and-mouse game.
Yeah,
And both sides need to stay ahead of the curve.
they do.
Before we move on, I want to emphasize that understanding network protocols like TCP and UDP is fundamental in cybersecurity. It's like knowing the language of the digital world.
Absolutely. These protocols are the foundation of how information is exchanged on networks. Understanding how they work is crucial for both attackers and defenders. It's like knowing the rules of the road before you get behind the wheel.
That's a great analogy. Now let's shift our focus to the human element of cybersecurity, which is often the weakest link. Question 122 takes us into the realm of social engineering.
Social engineering. It's all about manipulating people into revealing sensitive information or taking actions that compromise security. It exploits human psychology, rather than technical vulnerabilities.
So it's like the art of persuasion applied to the digital world.
That's a great way to put it. Social engineers are masters of manipulation. They often use deception, trickery, and psychological tactics to achieve their goals.
The question asks what method should be used to visualize the authorization information being transmitted during a web application test. The answer lies in decoding the authorization header using base64. Can you break that down for us?
Authorization headers are commonly used in web applications to transmit authentication information, like usernames and passwords. Base64 is a way of encoding data. It's often used to represent binary data in a text format.
So by decoding the authorization header using base64, a tester can see the actual authentication information that's being transmitted between the user and the web application.
Precisely. This can help identify weak authentication, potential credential leaks, or other vulnerabilities related to how the application handles sensitive data.
It's a reminder that even seemingly secure systems can be vulnerable to social engineering attacks if the human element isn't properly addressed.
Absolutely. User awareness training is critical. We need to educate people about the tactics used by social engineers, empower them to spot and report suspicious activity, and create a culture of security awareness within organizations.
It's about making people aware that they're often the first line of defense against these attacks.
Exactly. Technology can only do so much. It's the human element that ultimately determines how secure a system truly is.
That's a powerful message. We've covered a lot of ground. In this part of our deep dive, we've explored vulnerabilities, tools, attack techniques, and the importance of human awareness in cybersecurity. And I think I'm starting to see how all of these pieces fit together in this complex puzzle.
It is a complex puzzle.
It is.
But you're getting it.
Well, we're almost at the end of our deep dive, and I'm ready for the final part. Yeah. I'm eager to see what else we've got.
Well, we have some fascinating questions left that delves even deeper into the human element of cybersecurity.
Okay.
So, stay tuned. We'll be right back with the final part of our cybersecurity deep dive.
Welcome back to the final part of our cybersecurity deep dive. It's amazing how much we've uncovered already. From the technical side of things, like network protocols and tools, to the human element of social engineering, what else have we got in this final stretch?
We're going to keep exploring that human element.
Yeah.
Which, as we've seen, can be a major factor in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Question 179 really highlights this. It asks about the best way to determine if top-level executives are susceptible to social engineering attacks.
That's a great question. Executives are often high-value targets for attackers because they have access to sensitive information and decision-making power. But how do you figure out if they're likely to fall for a scam?
The answer lies in something we all use: social media. The exam points to scraping social media for personal details as a key tactic.
So attackers are essentially using social media as a reconnaissance tool.
Exactly. They can gather information about an executive's interests, travel plans, family members, and more, all from publicly available information. This allows them to craft very personalized phishing emails or messages that appear more legitimate and increase the chances of success.
It's a good reminder that what we share online can have real-world consequences. Even in terms of cybersecurity, it's not just about protecting our privacy, but protecting ourselves from targeted attacks.
Oh, definitely is. Now let's switch gears and look at a tool that plays a significant role in web application testing: Burp Suite. Question 170 asks what Burp Suite is used for, and the answer is simple: web application testing. But I think it's worth diving a bit deeper into what that actually means.
Yeah, I agree. We've talked about web application vulnerabilities, but what does it actually mean to test them?
Think of Burp Suite as a comprehensive toolbox for web security professionals. It allows them to intercept and modify web traffic, analyze how an application behaves under different conditions, and automate security testing tasks.
So it's like giving security testers the ability to see inside the workings of a web application and poke around to see if anything breaks.
That's a good analogy. They can use Burp Suite to identify vulnerabilities, exploit weaknesses, and assess the overall security posture of a web application. It's a crucial tool for finding and fixing problems before attackers can exploit them.
It sounds like an incredibly versatile tool, essential for anyone involved in web application security.
It is. Now let's revisit the importance of reporting in cybersecurity. We've touched on this before, but question 197 highlights a specific aspect. What's the most important information to include in a report? For developers, the answer: remediation.
So it's not enough to just tell developers, hey, you have a security problem here. You need to give them specific guidance on how to fix it.
Precisely. A good penetration testing report should include clear, concise, and actionable remediation steps. It's like providing a mechanic with a detailed repair manual outlining the exact steps needed to fix a problem.
That makes perfect sense. Without those specific instructions, developers are left guessing, and the vulnerability might not be fixed effectively.
Exactly. The goal is to empower developers to not only understand the issue, but also to take the right steps to remediate it, making the application more secure.
It really underscores the collaborative nature of cybersecurity. It's not just about finding vulnerabilities, it's about working together to fix them and build more resilient systems.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a point that's been woven throughout our deep dive. Cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility.
Yeah. It's not just about having,
Yeah.
the latest security software or hiring a team of experts. It's about everyone understanding the risks, following best practices, and making smart decisions about their digital lives.
You got it. We need to be proactive about protecting our personal information, our devices, and our networks. That means using strong passwords, being wary of suspicious emails, keeping software updated, and being mindful of what we share online.
It's also about staying informed and curious, which is exactly what we've tried to do in this deep dive. We've explored vulnerabilities, tools, attack techniques, the psychology behind social engineering, the importance of reporting and remediation. It's been quite a journey.
It has. And the journey doesn't end here. Cybersecurity is constantly evolving, so we all need to keep learning, adapting, and staying ahead of the curve.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the key takeaway you want listeners to remember?
Cybersecurity is a shared responsibility, and even small actions can make a big difference in protecting ourselves and our digital world. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.
Excellent advice. Thanks for taking us on this fascinating deep dive into the world of cybersecurity. Until next time, happy exploring.